Hi everyone joining me for this live stream today. So as you saw by the reference photo that I had up on the thumbnail, we're going to be painting this sea turtle. Now I do have this pretty zoomed in, so let me know if this is too close and you want me to back it out a little bit. But I figured you mostly wanted to see just the turtle, and then I've got my palette here so at least you can see the colors that I'm going to be using. I have my brushes over here off to the side. Oh, thanks, Crafting with EB. It looks good. Can you hear me okay as well? But I've got my brushes over here on the side, just on a piece of paper towel. I've got a cup up here for dirty water. I've got a cup for clean water. And then I've got my Inktense blocks that I'm going to be using on this palette up here. But what I'm going to be doing is just sort of transferring them and watering them down a little bit and putting them into this palette, so you can really see. Okay, perfect, so you can hear me. And the colors that I've picked out for this turtle, and you can use whatever colors that you want, but I've picked out burnt orange, fuchsia, no, this is the turquoise. Then I've got the fuchsia, I've got mauve, I've got dark purple, and I've got a black, and we may or may not use that. I've also got my Inktense block white up here, just in case we need to add in some brights at the end. Hello, Happy K Artist. I'm so happy you're able to join today from the beginning as well. So thank you to everybody joining and anybody watching this back as well. Are you guys going to be painting along, or are you just watching today? Now, hopefully you read the description if you are going to be painting along, because what I did was I went ahead and used some masking fluid to mask out the little white or the lighter areas in between the shells here and in between all of these little areas in his fins. Just watching, and that's fine. That is totally fine. Watch and learn and have fun and chat. But if you didn't do this, you can still do the same glazing technique that I'm going to do today, and then you can always go ahead and take your white Inktense block, because this is super opaque, and you can go over top of those areas and make it lighter again. If you don't have the white blocks, or if you don't have any of the blocks, you can follow along with the Inktense pencils as well. The only difference is, and I'm going to show you here with the Inktense blocks, we have this turquoise, which is 1215, but with the pencils, they have this aquamarine 1220, and as you can see, it's pretty much the exact same color. But these are pretty much the colors that I'm going to use here today. All right, so I think I'm just going to get started, and I'm just going to use my kneaded eraser here and just lighten up a couple of areas in our turtle. Now, I don't want to get rid of all of my line work because some of this line work is going to act as some detail in our turtle here. But I'm just going to lighten up a few little areas here and along the bottom of this shell. I'm going to paint along, just try it out. Well, that's wonderful, Happy K Artist. I hope you do. Are you using the Inktense blocks, or are you using watercolors? Nice color choice. Well, if you know my channel, you know I love bright colors. And turquoise and magenta are actually one of my favorite colors. So, of course, I had to add them in. And purple, too. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to add some water to my palette. And I just find it easy to use this little pipette here. And I'm going to get some clean water and just start putting it in to some of these places so we can get our colors mixed up. And sometimes I follow along with the color choices, you know, with reference photos, and sometimes I like to kind of do my own thing. It just depends what I'm in the mood for. So I'm going to start with that turquoise color, or whatever you want your lightest color to be. This is sort of going to be, I like that, I really liked that blue, like shadowing or highlighting sort of on the turtle. So I'm going to use this color to kind of mimic that. All right, so I think I'm going to start, maybe we'll start on the shell here, and let's test out to see how dark this is. I always like to have a piece of paper nearby, and I might actually add just a little bit more water into that because I really want it to be watered down, very light. So I'm going to rinse that, mix this up again here, and I'm just going to test it. And I like that a lot better. I just want it to be very light. Now, we should be able to finish this turtle guy off today. So I was thinking of doing another live stream next Sunday. And I was thinking either maybe something in pastels or maybe something with colored pencils. So let me know what you guys would like to see. But I'm sort of putting this color in all of the highlighty areas and just a couple of areas where I see it. And I'm going to put it under here in this shell. Pastels. I thought pastels might be a good one because I really haven't used my pastels in a while. And I'm going to go under his belly here. And I want to start pretty light because we can always make it darker. But with the Inktense, since they are pretty permanent, you know, once you get them on, that's pretty much it. Now, Happy K Artist, you said you're following along. Did you use my traceable that I made? Was that easy enough for you to trace down, or did you go ahead and draw it out yourself? And I'm going to go ahead and put this color under his chin here as well. So I'm pretty much following most of the areas in the regular reference photo where this blue color would be. Or turquoise, depending what color you're using. Oh, you're using watercolor pencils. Oh, that's great. They'll probably just take a little bit longer to lay down, but and I'm just going to put a touch down just along this fin, not a whole lot in here. And then yes, of course, ask any questions. So anybody that's watching this, or if you're watching the replay and if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask me. I would love that. Okay, so I'm going to start mixing up my other colors just to give this a minute or so to kind of dry. I'm trying not to use like a heat tool or a hair dryer because I feel like that would be pretty loud on stream, but so that's my burnt orange color there. I might add a little bit more water in because we can always go darker, like I said. So I'm just going to scoop a little bit more water in each of these wells here. And I'm taking it from my clean water dish, even though there's a little bit on my brush color, it looks like. All right, so then I'm going to grab that fuchsia color. So what would you like for pastels if we were to do a pastel piece? What kind of subject would you like? Because we could either do like a botanical kind of piece. I have this really pretty flower and butterfly, or we could like jump in and do something like a cat portrait. I have this really nice like faded out cat portrait. I'm gonna grab just a little bit more of that burnt orange there. This turtle is going to look great. I hope so, Evie. I really hope so. I chose these colors and then I thought, you know, are they going to go together? And I thought, let's try it. Let's just try it. Why not? So I'm taking that burnt orange to start with. And I'm going to start glazing it over the shell here. Now, I don't want to cover the whole shell, but I'm going to go up to where we had that blue. And I'm sort of looking where like the lightest area on our shell is. And I'm putting that in. Just grabbing a little bit more. And I'm going to kind of bring it down a little bit further than where I would, because I'm going to overlap this in the fuchsia color. Okay. The flowers would be awesome. Okay, so you'd like a botanical piece. Just gonna mix my own colors. I don't have that color. Oh, well, you go ahead and just pick whatever colors that you want, but I'm basically gonna put this color near all of our blue colors, the blue color that we put down. And sort of where the normal like orangey color that we see for this turtle, that's where I'm gonna end up putting this color really. And a little bit on the edge of the shell here. Okay. And I'm going to grab some more, and I'm going to get this color sort of up on the shoulder here under that shell. I'm just going to lightly glaze this in and up around the neck here. Now I don't want it to be too dark here, so I'm going to dab some of that color off onto my paper towel that I have, and then I'm just going to lightly get this color to meet that blue color there, but we don't want it to be too strong. Now, did you have a question for me, Happy K Artist? Because you had asked earlier if you could ask a question, and I just want to make sure I didn't miss it. I'm just going to drag this color just under here, just like lightly brushing it in. Don't have to color, you know, we don't have to cover every little area, but. Okay, I'm going to grab that and I'm going to start putting it towards the top of his head here as well. Again, just dabbing a bit off when I want to go a little lighter. And some of this is going to be like our darker purples and stuff, so just want to get some around his eye going. And some of these areas here, and then over here. Who's my favorite singer? Oh, that's a good question. I think my favorite singer would be Amy from Evanescence. I really like Evanescence. I really like her voice and her style of singing. And I'm just sort of filling in this area, even though it's going to be a little bit darker here, I'm just sort of getting some colors in. And then I'm going to take this color and sort of, you know, again, follow where we put that blue. But I want it to be pretty light in here. So again, I'm going to dab off and just let that color fade out. And I'm just gonna mix up just a tiny bit more of that burnt orange. A little bit more concentrated now. And I'm gonna start filling in this fin area here. And I'm pretty much going to fill in the whole fin here. And then as we go over top with our other colors, it'll end up eventually darkening it up. And again, I'm just going to dab some of that color off and just just get a little bit of that color in there where it's a little bit lighter. Okay. So now I'm going to start with that fuchsia color, and I might even dab a bit off as we're going over this shell. And I'm going to start sort of like halfway through. And you know what, maybe I'll even get it just a little bit more concentrated. And this is just going to help brighten things up because I really want, you know, a pop of bright color in there. So I'm just getting a little bit more fuchsia. Oh, that's cool. Do you listen to her, or do you like her music at all? Or who's your favorite singer? And I'm going to dab off again, and I'm just sort of going to start dry brushing some of this texture up onto the shell here, just to give that sort of textured look. Okay, and again, I'm going to take this color and just sort of, again, lay it over here. And then sort of like meeting into that burnt orange that we had laid down earlier. Just to warm it up, really give it a little pop. Are you listening to Lana Del Rey? I'm not sure. I don't know if I've listen to that artist or not. And same here in this big fin. I'm just going to start laying this color over top of everything. Now I'm not going all the way because I want to save some of that, just the burnt orange. I'm going to cover up some of it. And again, over here, I'm going to start sort of like where this blue comes in, and I'm just going to start laying just a little bit of it down here because this fin is pretty bright. So I don't want to get it too dark, and I'm going to dab that brush off again and then just sort of soften that out. Just let it fade out. If it mixes with our blue, that's fine. I'm going to get a hint of it over here in this area, just along the edge a little bit. Okay, you're a fan of her. I'm going to have to go look her up afterwards. Is she anything like Evanescence? Does her stuff sound like her, because I really enjoy that type of music where it's sort of like heavy metal but some singing in it. Well, she doesn't really do heavy metal, but I'm a big fan of heavy metal music also. I'm also going to take this and go more under the shell here. So this is still our fuchsia color that we're using. And so I'm looking where it's a little bit darker on either side of the shoulder, and that's where I'm sort of going to start putting this color in a little bit more. And we're just sort of starting to get things a little bit darker. So really, you can use really any color that you want for this. It's just to look at that contrast. So as long as you're getting that contrast in, that's what's going to make it look more realistic. And obviously with the colors that we're using, you know, I'm not going super realistic on this, but just a little bit over here by his nose, a little around the eye. And I'm just sort of making lines now where I see it around the eye. Okay. I like in this moment, seeing them in concert, they were with Five Finger Death Punch. Oh, that would be so cool. Oh, hello, Lisa. Good morning. Thank you so much. And thanks. I hope it turns out. We'll see. We'll see. I just wanted to play with some bright colors. So this is our fuchsia. No, this is our mauve color here. So I'm going to start with this color now. And I'm going to concentrate this in sort of the darker areas that I can see, and I might need to get it even more concentrated, because this is going to be one of our darker colors that we've got going on here. And then I've got a couple options if I really need to take it a little darker or anything. But really we're having fun, we're playing around with some color. And that's what I love to do. And I'm really happy, I'm really grateful that you guys are joining me today for this. So thank you so much. And if anybody's watching this replay, thank you for joining. I hope you consider subscribing, hitting the like button, because that does really help. And I hope you paint along. Okay, so I'm getting some dark in here. And I think I'm going to end up mixing in a little bit of that dark purple, because I want it even darker, I think. I'm just adding a little bit of mauve back. You might have heard of her, that artist. I'll have to check them out. Yeah, I'm gonna look her up also after. That purple does pop, and that's what I was hoping for. That's gonna be our popping color. So again, I'm gonna dab off any excess water on my brush and sort of dry brush this up into those other colors, because there is some texture on our shell here. So I kind of want to start, you know, getting that in. Doesn't have to be perfect or anything, but so I'm just lightly, you know, and all of these colors together are going to give it a little bit dimension and stuff. She does sad songs. Oh, okay. I kind of like that. Okay. And I'm just going to just dry brush a little bit on the edge here, give it a little bit of texture where that light is coming from. Okay, and I'm going to start taking this into some of our, yes, it's popping, I hope. So I'm going to start taking this color into some of our feet here. Now I may have to dry this at some point. I will see. But I'll warn you guys before I get the dryer out. And I'm just going to take this color where I see the shadow all along here. And it doesn't matter where we've already put that blue down because this is a darker color. It's going to show up over. No problem. And I'm going to just take this under the shell a little bit here. And then I'm going to start bringing it. This channel is growing. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I hope so. I hope it's growing. So I'm going to start getting some of this texture under here. Sort of where, and I'm actually going to get a little bit of that off. And where I see sort of that texture under on the shell here, we're just going to sort of messily put this in. Doesn't have to be perfect at all. I'm just sort of using the tip of my brush to sort of dab it in. And I'm going to get just a bit up here, a little bit lighter pressure. What paintbrushes am I using? Okay, I've got everything linked or down in the description below, but I am using my silver black velvet brushes. These are my favorite brushes for any kind of type of painting, really. And I'm going to sort of bring this color just lightly up in here. Just sort of following some of these little lines and edges. And where we've got a little couple of spots here. Yeah, so I mainly use my silver black velvet brushes, and I hope you can see they hold a really nice point, and they hold a lot of water and pigment in them as well. So that's why I really enjoy using them. And again, I'm going to take this color into here. And I'm going to cover a lot of this up because this fin is different. Like it's darker than the other ones, but because we've done all that layering, some of that color is still going to show through, right? I like them. Yes, they're absolutely my favorite. They are my favorite. I started with the Princeton Neptune brushes, and though I still enjoy them, but I just like these ones better. These are just a little bit better. Okay, so again, I'm going to get most of that color off, and I'm just going to lightly start kind of going over here. Don't want to get rid of everything, but I just want to show that it's darker. So I'm sort of just dry brushing. And I'm just going to go back in and really darken up here. Maybe I'll add a little bit more mauve in. There we go. A little bit more over here. And then I'm going to go in here where there's just a few little spots. I'm going to sort of just get that color on where those spots would be. Don't have to be super accurate. here, you know, all spots on turtles are very random. So I'm just putting this color in where I see it there. You think you discovered this channel on the bird painting tutorial. Oh, well, that's awesome. That's awesome. I really enjoyed that one. I need to do another bird, and I keep saying I need to do this and I need to do that, but there's just so many mediums that I love to use, and so it's hard to use them all. But that's why I've decided I'm going to start doing these live streams every Sunday. Now, every once in a while I do work weekends, so I may have to switch it to like a Monday or Tuesday, but I am going to try to be doing these every Sunday around the same time. And I'm also going to get these little dots and patches up here and stuff too. So that way we'll be doing more projects. I can do more mediums, and honestly, it's kind of fun being able to chat with you guys at the same time. So that's why I think instead of just the real-time tutorials, because it's kind of boring just sitting here talking to myself, to be honest. So I think I'm going to start doing them like this. So hopefully you guys like this format. And then we can just sit here, chat, and paint. And, you know, depending what the tutorial is, like today we should be able to get this turtle finished all in one sitting. But, you know, depending how big the project is, we might have to do it like in 2 or 3 different settings. So just depends. So I'm going to get a little bit of that off my brush again so it's more dry, and I want it a little bit lighter color over here. Good thing I got a raise. Definitely going to get these. Yes, I know. I think I'm addicted. Well, I'm addicted to art supplies in general, but don't tell my husband. Well, he knows. He already knows. So no surprise there. But again, I'm just doing little fine lines here around the eye, and I'll probably have to come in a little bit darker to get that in after. But I love Sundays. I enjoy watching you paint. Thank you so much, EB. I enjoy having you guys here. I'm so happy. And we can paint together. And you know what? I was thinking of making, what is it called? Like a Facebook group or something. And then that way you guys could post, you know, your artworks that you create in there. And we can all sort of help each other out and give tips and stuff. I don't know. There's a lot of like art Facebook groups out there. So I don't know if people would actually like that, but I thought that would be kind of fun. I'm also going to start putting it in here, and then it kind of fades off too on both sides. So I'm going to start putting it in, and then I'm going to sort of like do little dots that kind of like get sparser and fade out. Just to give a hint of that texture. And again, we'll probably come back in with one more layer, darken things up. That would be cool. All right, well, maybe I'll do that. And if anybody's watching the replay, let me know if you guys want a pastel piece next week, and I can do that. I'll figure out something, whether it's a botanical piece. I've got this really pretty like flower and butterfly piece. So we could do that. And then we could eventually do like an animal portrait as well. So I'm following along his little mouth here. This line kind of goes back quite far. And again, dabbing off, and I'm just going to fade out here a little bit. These two spots kind of almost touch, but not really. Okay. I have a Facebook page and group too. I also have a Discord. Oh, well, feel free to. I don't know if you can put a link in here in the chat, EB, but definitely feel free to leave it in the comments. so that people can go and join that one as well. So I'm just going back in with that more concentrated color, and I'm going to come along here and sort of darken up this purple a little bit more. And then again, I'm just going to get all the excess off and start sort of dry brushing that color up, just so that it kind of blends. Now, because these colors are, you know, obviously quite different, if we had closer colors, it would be easier to blend these colors wet on wet, which I love doing. But because I picked, you know, pretty different colors, I'm sort of using the dry brush technique to kind of get them to look as if they're more cohesive and they go together. And this is sort of an experimentation, you know. And again, I'm gonna just make sure these are blending here. Okay, so I'm just gonna go where I've put some of these lines around his neck and over his little shoulder area here, and I'm just gonna start darkening up some of these. Don't have to go over the whole thing, but that's the nice thing about leaving our sketch dark, because now we can use it to our advantage for some of these areas. And you don't have to get all of them, just a little bit, just to show that there is some wrinkles, some texture. I'm going to mix up a little bit more of that mauve color with just a hint of that dark purple in it. And I'm going to get these little, I don't know, I'm going to call them freckles, whatever they are, these little spots that are kind of under the shell here. And there's a few over here as well. So I'm just kind of doing little dots, because most of these don't have to be perfect. And I'm just getting my reference photo back up. It like disappears after, I don't know, 20 minutes or something like that. I haven't figured out how to keep it on my screen longer, so. So I find short, quick strokes will give me a lighter touch with this. And because these silver black velvet brushes have such a fine point too, it is a little bit easier to get, you know, finer details in here. And if anybody just watching or coming on, if you have any questions for me, please feel free to ask. And I want to make sure that some of these lines are curving, right? Because his neck's just not straight. So I want them to sort of curve this way as well. Oh, you're very welcome. These down here as well. These are pretty light, so. The fun thing with these turtles, it doesn't have to be completely accurate. You just pretty much have to do like a zigzaggy type line, and you know, you've got like a little wrinkle or a little line there, so it doesn't have to be completely accurate. Meg Perry says, this is beautiful. Can you someday do a comparison between using watercolor and Inktense? I know the Inktense is not supposed to lift, which makes you choose it over watercolors. Well, I could absolutely do a comparison between the two sometime. That would be a great video idea, so thank you. And yeah, the Inktense, it doesn't lift, so especially when you're doing it in light layers like this, that's why I'm doing sort of the dry brushing method, because it dries really quickly too. It doesn't lift, so if you're working on something and you want to do multiple layers, you can absolutely do that. you know, there's benefits between this and the watercolors for sure. And I love both of them. I think I like the Inktense. I don't know, I feel like when I use the Inktense, I use it more for like color. Like I want a pop of color. And watercolor, I find watercolors just so versatile too, but I really love them both. Now I'm going to go along the edge of the shell here and just darken up just the edge a little bit to give a little more contrast in there. Oh, thank you so much, EB. That's such a sweet comment. You know, you kind of just go with the flow. I was feeling these colors. I thought, you know, I wasn't sure if they were going to work out, but here we go. Gonna darken up that mouth again. Now I'm gonna take this same purple color that I've been using and I'm gonna go around the dark part in the eye. So there's a little area here where it's pretty bright. And I'm going to save that because I think I might put the turquoise color in there and see how that looks. We'll see. If it looks bad, we'll go over it with just black and we'll make a black eye. But I'm going to start getting some color in here because no matter what medium I'm using, I don't like to use just black. So even when I'm doing, and I'm just grabbing a little bit of that dark purple there on my brush, and I'm going to drop this in as well. So no matter what medium I'm using really, I don't like to use black on its own. And you'll notice for a lot of my artworks that I do, I don't even bring the black out at all. So it just depends, you know, what your goal is, really. But I tend to save that one for the last because I know black is going to be the darkest, right? And I'm just going to go in and start darkening up some of these other little spots here that need to be darker. And this is mostly that dark purple color on my brush now. And actually maybe I'll mix some up here on the side. So I'm going to start going in and any of the little, whatever these little freckles are, we're going to call them, I'm going to start darkening up some of those. Then I'll go ahead and probably dry him. We'll take the masking fluid off. And then we'll see any touch-ups that we still need to do. Things like that. But I hope you guys are enjoying this so far. So I'm seeing a lot of the shadows are more down this way, so they're towards the bottom right. So that's where I'm trying to focus this color. And I'm putting it in a little bit messy. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now some of these smaller ones are kind of completely covered. And like this one's different. The shadow's more towards the top left. And this one here. And I'm going to take this color and cover in his nostrils that he's got going on here. And then we can always come back with our black because that'll be one of the darkest shadows in there, and around the eye will be one of his darkest shadows. And I'm going to darken these up. And I apologize if I'm a little quiet. I tend to get quiet when I'm concentrating on little details. And then let me know, do you guys want to do a background with this? We could, I was thinking of taking that turquoise color and sort of like doing a wash in the background. Now some of these are pretty light, so I'm just going to do just a little bit on them. And these ones here. So I'm going to start in the dark area, and then I'll do a little bit in this light area too, but I might have to take some off my brush. We'll see. And all these little layers that we're doing is going to create that depth and just create, you know, some realism in our piece. I'm actually going to take this and just go right along the edge here. So these dark colors is really, you know, really what's going to help make them pop too. So I'm starting to sort of dry brush this on down here because all this area down here is pretty dark. And I'm going to dab off a lot of it. That would be a cool color for the background. Yes, and that's why I sort of used it in like these highlighter in the highlight areas, because then it will really make that background color pop even. And I like turquoise with magentas and purples anyway. I find they just all really pop well together. And then I don't know, I liked that burnt orange color. It just looked like a really nice, when it was watered down, like a really nice peachy, orangey color. And I quite liked that. So again, just dry brushing some of this color on just where I want it. A little bit darker, but not like super concentrated. And I'm going to take a little bit down here as well, just to darken up this edge. Now this foot's a little bit lighter, so, and the dark sides look like they're on the left a little bit more. So that's where I'm going to put them in. I'm just going to put a little bit. I'm actually going to get a little bit less water on my brush, a little less concentrated. Sort of just dry brush over some of these areas. So I'm just sort of like tapping and dabbing some of this color in. I don't want it to be too dark, but I want there to be sort of like, I don't want to call it some messiness going on, but that's kind of what it looks like. Just some, you know, overlay of the color, I guess. And then again here. Okay. So I'm just giving my brush a really good rinse now. And I'm actually going to go back in with this turquoise color. And just going to dab some off, and anywhere I want it a little bit darker. Actually, I might just get some right off the stick there. So I want it to be a little bit darker, a little bit more concentrated down here a bit. So I'm going to start putting that in. And under here. Sort of meeting those other colors that we had. Just a little bit more on this edge. And just a little darker down here. I'm going to dab off most of that color. and then just sort of like dry brushing it. Because where this is like an orange and this is a blue, so if I were to go in wet and wet, this would make sort of like a brown muddy mess. So that's why I'm sort of getting them a little bit drier here, so they're not gonna really mix on the paper, but you can see when they overlay it's not as of a muddy mess, really. Get a little bit more, maybe just darken up under here a little bit. Now I want to be careful where I've put that purple in. I'm just going to sort of dab this on. And you can see that purple and that blue, they're not mixing at all, right? So that's the nice thing about Inktense. Depending what watercolor you're using, you know, you're going to get it, again, just dabbing off that brush, and I'm just going to dry brush it up into our orange here just to get sort of a little bit of it mixing. A little bit here, maybe. That color here where it's a little bit lighter on the top of his shoulder. I'm going to call it turtle shoulder. I don't know. And then I might just do a light little wash right here and sort of up into this area. Now I've got some of this masked out, but if there's any of it that's going to mix or anything, then there. So we've got a little bit of variety and color going on. Okay, again, I'm going to rinse out really well. And I'm going to set my brush down. Actually, I'll put it on the paper towel so it doesn't roll away. So I'm going to give you guys a warning. I'm going to go ahead and use my heat tool to dry this really well. And I'm going to take the masking fluid off. And then we'll see if the white areas look too stark. With this, what we can do is go over a light glaze with our colors that we've already used. And then we'll kind of see where we need to adjust it. But if you want to mute or anything or turn the volume down, now is the time. And then we'll do our background too, okay? So you've been warned. Another good thing about the Inktense is because it dries pretty quickly, it dries fairly easily when you use like a heat tool as well. Now I've got this little thing that came with a masking fluid set, and this just helps take the masking fluid up because you can just rub it along. However, if you don't have this, you can always just go ahead and use your finger to start getting that masking fluid up. So I don't know if you can tell there. That works just as well. If you don't want to use your finger, you can use a face cloth to go over top of it and just gently rub it off. And I do have a video showing how I apply the masking fluid and how I take it off as well. But I'm just going to go ahead and use this because it just keeps my hands off my artwork and it avoids, you know, any of the oils from your hands transferring onto the artwork. But once you get the masking fluid going too, you know, it's pretty easy to kind of start peeling off. And I think I will end up going over with just a light glaze. Now, if you didn't use the masking fluid and you just went ahead and did the glaze and now you've got no white lines, you've got a few options. So you can use either, I know you said Happy K Artist, you were using watercolor, right? So you could always make a watered down version with gouache of those colors. And then that way that's going to go over top. That's one way to do it. Or you could just go over top with a really light version of gouache. So the more that you water down the gouache, it will be lighter and more transparent. So it won't be like a stark white like this. So that's another way that you could do it. And you could just do a light wash all along, and then those colors that you used will still show through. Now, if you're using the Inktense blocks like I am, the Inktense block white is super opaque. So you could go over top of this and that would bring your whites back no problem. If you don't have the blocks, if you're using the pencil, you could use the Inktense white pencil. However, that's not as opaque as the block is, but that might work to your advantage because it might not be a stark white like this. So you've got a few options there. And if worse comes to worse, if you've got none of those things that I've mentioned, you can use a white colored pencil, or you could use, you know, a white marker or something like that. It's art. Use what you have. So do you guys have any other questions for me while I'm doing this? Because this is just going to take a minute to get all of this off. Crafting with EB says, what was that called you're using to remove the masking fluid? Oh, it's, I'm not sure what it's called. I think it's like a masking fluid rubber, like some kind of rubber thing, but it came with, came in a set with this masking fluid, the Incredible White Mask Liquid Frisket. It came with this, and like a little brush, but I find I like my Winsor & Newton masking fluid better than this, so I kept this to use because it's still really good. But the masking fluid I typically use is this Winsor & Newton Art Masking Fluid, and I like this one because it's slightly pigmented, and you do have to shake it up before you use it, but it gives that yellow tint, so you can sort of see really easily where you've put your masking fluid down. So I really like that. So I'm going to go over his head, and this is really gentle too. This doesn't damage the paper at all, I've found. And just so you guys know, this is the Arches cold pressed watercolor block. It's down in the description below. But I've had this masking fluid on this paper now since Tuesday or Wednesday for sure. And I've left this masking fluid on paper for well over a week before while I've been working on a project, and I've never had it rip the paper. So it's definitely one of my top favorites. That's for sure. Okay, so even though I've used that block to get the masking fluid off, I still like to run over with my finger, and that'll just let me know if there's any masking fluid left on the paper, because you'll sort of feel like a little hard spot. And there, so I think we got it all. So what I'm gonna do now is just do like a little watered down version of those colors and just lightly glaze over, because some of this it's a little too white for me, the lighter parts. So that's what I'm gonna do. I just wanna get a really, really light version. So this is the burnt orange. I'm gonna start with that. I think, yeah, I've got it on my brush now. So, and I might even dab some of that off. Maybe not. And I just want a really light color, so you can see how it just takes away some of that whiteness. Like, it's very white. There we go. And I'm going to bring this color down to these ones too. And down here, so I'm pretty much taking this wherever I took the other colors. I just want it to be, make sure it's watered down enough, because we do want to keep, you know, the white of the paper. And again, I'm just going to glaze over just some of these areas here. on this fin as well. And if you like the white, you know, if you like the contrast with the white, absolutely keep that. Like, there is no reason why you can't keep that, like a nice bright white. You do whatever you want to do. This is art. There's no rules, right? Except for copyright. There's no rules. Okay. Just dabbing off a little bit, and I'm just going to come in here around his face and just put just a little bit in. Like, I'm not even hitting every area. I'm just dabbing little random spots just to sort of bring that color in. Okay, and I'm going to do the same with that pink. I'm just trying to grab a little bit of that color. And again, I'm just going to just glaze where I feel it, sort of where I put that pinky color down. Maybe a little too much there. It's all right, wipe it down. Gonna get that off and just try to lift a little bit. Now you have to be quick with the Inktense if you're gonna lift, because it doesn't lift as well as watercolor. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So I'm gonna make sure that's even more watered down. So how are you guys coming along with your turtles if you're following along? And you know what? I'm kind of liking this watered down fuchsia color. I think I'm going to cover the rest of this, and I'm not even going to use that purple color because this is sort of giving me the color that I want there. So I'm going to just go over the rest with this. Again, dabbing off if I think I have too much color, adding a little bit of water. Now this line here is pretty white, like that's a white spot and over here, so I'm going to try to keep those pretty light. Okay. And I'm going to go in with this turquoise color and just lightly do the same thing, so I want to make sure that's watered down enough. And just lightly go over some of these here. And again, I'm just bringing a little bit up in here just to have a little bit of that blue tint. And I'm going to go in a little more concentrated now with that turquoise, and we're going to fill in that little spot in the eye that we left. So we're going to leave that, and then I think I'll even go in darker around it, and we'll see how that looks. If we don't like it, we'll make the whole thing dark. Okay. Lisa says, excuse me, Lisa says, I just enjoy watching you do art. You are so talented and I'm so proud of you. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Lisa. And Crafting with EB says, amazing job. Thank you so much. You guys are so sweet and I love having you here. Thank you guys so much. Just gonna grab a little sip of water and then we will work on our background. So I think, excuse me. So I think doing the turquoise background is going to make this turtle pop even more. And I've just got my silver black velvet 3/4 brush here. It's a flat brush, but use whatever brush that you have. What I'm going to do is actually wet the background first, and then we'll go in with our color. However, I've noticed, I don't know if you can see this texture starting in the palette here. When I've done wet on wet, I've noticed a little bit more texture versus when I've done wet on dry like this, but I don't really mind that in the background. So I'm hoping that's going to give a little bit more texture, a little more bit more difference. But what I'm going to do now is just start wetting the background up. And because this is Arches cold pressed paper, it can take a lot of water. And if you've watched any of my watercolor tutorials, I always say it's really important. You really want to take your time and put the water down on the background. Now I've gone a little bit over him, so I'm just gonna dab that off. And actually, you know what? If you go over your turtle, it's not a big deal because we've used some of that color on him anyway. But I'm just being a perfectionist. But there's no perfection in art. But yeah, I've always said with watercolor, when you're trying to do a wet on wet background and you want to give yourself as much time as possible to get it down, to get your colors blended and dark enough the way you want, you really need to take your time to wet that background. And take your time around the subject too, depending if you care like how sharp your edges are, if you care if your background color goes over him. Now, with me, I usually say I don't care, and I try to use the background color that I'm going to use in the artwork anyway, so that way if it happens, it just looks like I meant it to be there. No big deal. But you just want to take your time and pick whatever background you want. I'm probably going to do a solid, you know, I'm going to let it fade out, I think, around him and just sort of do it where I feel I want it. But if you want multiple colors in your background, you could add in some of the fuchsia, some of the purples, some of the burnt orange. But I feel like where he's already so bright, that's why I wanted the background to be more of one tone, and then it's gonna, you know, look a little bit more cohesive, I feel, because he's already so bright. Now, if I would have went in with more natural colors, then yeah, maybe I would decide to put more colors into the background just to give it a little bit more variety, a little bit more variation, some fun. So it just depends, but you do whatever you want. So Happy K Artist, how is your turtle coming out with your watercolor pencils? And I'm making sure to go right up to the edges too. Now the nice thing with a block like this is I don't have to worry about taping my artwork down. I can paint right up to the edges and not worry about it. However, if you were using just from a pad, a watercolor pad, I would advise you to tape it down because that definitely helps keep the paper flat when you're doing wet on wet like this, because as you can see, my paper's not buckling at all, and I'm putting on loads of water. I'm really putting on quite a bit of water. But that's going to give us enough time. It's going to keep the paper wetter longer so that we have enough time to get our color on all the way around our turtle. Now we want the paper to be shiny, not puddly. So we want it to have a nice shine to it. And what I'm going to do at this point is dab this brush off because I feel like I've got quite a bit of water on. And I'm just going to go over and it's just going to grab any excess water that I might have because I don't want any puddles on the paper. And taking our time like this, the water's really going to soak into the paper too and make it easier for us to do wet on wet. And another tip, you can tilt your paper here and you'll see if any of the water's running. You'll see if you've missed any areas because it will be shiny and then it won't be shiny in areas that you've missed. So you can sort of fix it that way. Now for the background, I'm going to grab a bigger brush. So I'm going to take my size 12 silver black velvet and we're going to mix our turquoise color up. Now it's pretty much all mixed up, really. I just want to get a little bit more color on there. So I'm just taking it right from the stick and putting it on here. And then maybe I'll take that piece of paper that we had before. So this was the light mix that we had, and now we have this. So that's sort of the color that I'm going to use for the background. And I might even make it a little bit darker because when you are doing wet on wet, because there's already water on the paper, it will make whatever mix you've made up a little bit lighter. So maybe we'll start, maybe I'll start up here, and I'm just going to start putting this color in around him. And as you can see, right away I'm noticing with the Inktense, they don't act quite like watercolor. Now, because the background would have been wet and this is a very watery mix, watercolor would have just spread out really nicely. You would get a really nice spread, but I'm not noticing that with the Inktense here. So keep that in mind. And I'm just sort of going to go around him. Trying to get right up to the edges. And I might not, cover all the edges. Maybe I'll leave some spots blank, just depends. I kind of like his fin sticking out a little bit there. And this is also going to help define him. So you see, as soon as we go around his face, those lights that we had in there, it really gives it some contrast. You know what? I think I'll go around all the edges because I really like how that looked. Okay, so now I'm just going to, and this is my clean water, but I want it to be clean because I don't want it in purple. I don't want any purple, but I'm just going to take the clean water and get a little bit excess out of my brush, and I'm just going to start smoothing this out. So I want it to start fading out. So I'm just going to go around the edges and just start coaxing it out and to fade out, sort of. Almost like a halo around him. I feel like I don't want the whole paper filled up with this one color, but you can do your background however you want. And I'm just going to sort of help it fade out. I'm going to dab that brush off so that it's not as wet. And I really want these edges to sort of fade out into almost nothing. So again, dab off when I feel like I'm picking up a little bit too much color there. And I'm just really trying to help those edges like fade out into nothingness. And I might even go back in and wash that off. And I'm just going to take that Kleenex, and where I think I'm getting a little too close to some of the edges, just going to dab up. Sorry if that was a little loud there. Just going to dab up, just help that fade out. There we go. And then I'm going to go back in and just darken up just right around him. So where I've kind of taken that color and faded it out, I want to make sure that I still have, enough color saturation around him or her. Could be a female turtle. With the colors, I feel like maybe it's a female turtle. It looks good with the background. Yeah, the background really makes it pop, eh? And that's why these are all my favorite colors to go together. The teal, the magenta, the purple. I just feel like they all really go together well. And some people might look at that and go, really? Like magenta, fuchsia, purple, teal. But when you get them down on paper, and now that's just me, that might be, my preference, but maybe other people might look at these colors and go, ooh, that looks horrible. So it just depends, right? Everybody's different. I'm I'm just going to bring this up in here just a tiny bit, just to give a little bit more separation between those two. And I think I like how this is coming out. So how do you guys like it so far? I'm going to give that a good rinse in my dirty, and then a good rinse in my now other dirty cup as well. Okay. So you love it? It looks good? Oh, thank you so much, EB. I'm so happy that you like how it's turning out. All right, so I'm going to go back in. This eye's still a little bit wet. I'm just going to dry this eye quickly, so I do apologize. I'm giving you a warning now. Okay, so I'm just going to darken up his eye here. Where I've put that purple, I'm going to go in with the black, and I'm going to get it pretty concentrated here. So I've got my black stick over here, and this is the ink black. And I just want to go around where I've put that light blue. And then I'm going to go around where I've put that purple. And because we've layered the purple in already, it's going to give a little bit more dimension to the black than just putting the black down on its own. There. And then I'm also going to go in and darken up his little nostrils here. And I think that's all the places. Now my reference picture just went out again. I've got to figure out how to get that to stop. I think that's all the places that I really want to add any black to. Oh, thank you, Lisa. You're really enjoying this. I really appreciate you being here and joining us. So I think this is where I'm going to leave this today. I really like how it's turning out. I hope you guys enjoyed this real-time tutorial with me, this live tutorial. So any last minute suggestions for next week? Because I know Crafting with EB said a botanical with pastels would be lovely. So if anybody's watching this, please let me know down in the comments below what you would like to see, and I can always take your suggestions for the next one after next week. But if we do it in pastels, it'll probably take maybe 2 sessions, so it'll be like maybe 2 Sundays back to back. We'll work on the same project, but please let me know. I hope you guys really enjoyed this. If you did, be sure to give a like to the video. Make sure you subscribe. Those both really help me out. Come back next week, Sunday at the same time. It'll be 10 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time, so that's me. I am in Canada, Atlantic Standard Time, and we will do something in pastel. So I will find a reference photo this week, sketch it out, and have everything ready for you guys. So make sure when you see that live video scheduled, I'll have the reference photo, I'll have the line art, I'll have everything down below. I might not have my colors listed out. I'll try to have some maybe, but yeah, so thank you guys so much for joining, and as always, I will see you in the next one.